Traditionally, brands lose 100% of the visibility of who's using their product once it leaves the store. But recent data is showing that connected packaging in the form of QR codes and even NFC is driving 7 to 10 times the level of engagement than typical digital channels. So this is a compelling opportunity for a two-way conversation between brands and their consumers. And we've got the queen of connected packaging on the show this week, Jenny Stanley, who's been working in the field for the last decade and has recently published this book, Connected Packaging. It's actually the second edition that's just come out. So you know it's good because there's a second edition. So Jenny runs Appetite Creative, and they're a brand that's been at the front line of this. And for those of us who spend a lot of our time thinking about technology, this is really where it all comes together. It's where the lessons are learnt that teach us how to make the application of all of this next generation technology fruitful and worthwhile. I think you'll find it a good listen. So Jenny, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Good to be here.
I hope it's not sexist to say it, but I would say you are the queen of connected packaging. You run an agency that's been focused on it for best part of a decade. You have an annual survey, which I think you're just in the middle of, where you poll our ecosystem about it. You speak at the conferences, and you just put out the second edition of this book, Connected Packaging. So congratulations on all of that. When you are at a party and someone says, "What do you do?" how do you explain what connected packaging is?
I'm at a party. Yeah.
Or do you just try and change the subject? You were like, "I'm not going to talk about that."
I'm not sure that's my party trick, talking about connected packaging. But no. So connected packaging, yeah. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know what connected packaging is, it's basically the digital communication channel of using the packaging or the product as the conduit between the brand and the consumer.
And tell us what's changing and why it's important.
So many reasons. So there's lots of different things that are coming down the line. Probably the one that, again, if you're at the party, that most people can be familiar with is the Sunrise project, which is the GS1, the global standards change, where they are moving from barcodes to QR codes. Everybody knows what a barcode is. The idea is that actually the barcodes will be replaced with QR codes for many different reasons, but that's coming. And the date or the year for that is 2027. So obviously next year. So that's probably the biggest change at the moment. The second one, which less people know about, but some industries are already impacted by it, and it's going to impact a lot more, is the digital product passport, the DPP. That's actually in enforcement at the moment for a couple of different products. So batteries, detergents, those type of products at the moment need to carry a digital product passport. And the way to obviously access all that information instead of putting it onto the product or putting it into the packaging is actually having a QR code. And by scanning the QR code, then of course you can get all the information about where the product was from, how to dispose of the product, and the ingredients or materials that are in that product. Again, that is a big change. It's a European regulation, and there's different changes in the US market as well. So there's two big things there. And then there's lots of other deeper things such as PPWR, APR, all these different rules and regulations which are around sustainability. It's about responsible disposal of the materials. It's about involving the consumer. And of course, that gets then a little bit deeper, and I would lose people if I was at a party talking about those.
Yeah. But okay, so I noticed you focused a lot on the sticks there rather than the carrots, which is, you got to change it because how are people going to scan your product in the supermarket? And then there's if you're making toys or furniture, then you kind of got to do it because if you want to sell them in the EU, then there's going to be mandates there, and then there's all this sustainability legislation and so forth, which are all, they're there for a reason. It's good. But if you think about all of your clients, do they come to you because of the stick or the carrot? And I'd be interested in
Yes.
what's actually driving the projects, what's driving people to spend money. I think we all have some optimism that regulation's going to be something that just helps turbocharge a market that's been, I don't know, it's hard to tell, but it doesn't seem like it's like massive at the moment, but it is happening. So why do people actually do it when they spend money with you?
Yeah, no, definitely. Probably the question led me into the sticks, as in, and we haven't talked about the carrots. And of course, the whole opportunity there is the ability to be able to understand your consumer better, to increase sales, to have engagement time, to have loyalty programs, and it's all that marketing aspect. So I think one of the things that is really nice actually is now these different things which are coming, which are really only started being around or spoken about in the last, let's say, 2 to 4 years, and we've actually been doing connected packaging for 8 to 10. So obviously we weren't talking about any of those things before. And in fact, we were talking about QR codes, and we were selling QR codes and connected packaging before COVID as well. COVID actually helped the QR code come into what you would say the vernacular. People used, of course, QR codes to their passports to say whether you had the COVID injection, vaccination. And also that's when pubs, restaurants and bars started to use QR codes to show their menus. And so that really brought it into the public eye, because QR codes aren't a new thing. They're about 50 years old.
Yeah.
So actually that then helped push what we were already doing, but then that really kind of helped push it into something that, even your granny knows what a QR code is, right?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. My mother, who's a grandmother, does. She knows about QR codes, and I think the fact that it's now integrated into the photo app on your phone,
right.
that was
right,
a big
into the
one, wasn't
camera.
it?
Yeah, exactly. So that also helped to push things forward massively. Again, you didn't need to download it. Before, it was having to have a QR code scanner as an app that you had to download onto your phone. So again, that really helped to push things. So those were the two things in the past, you can say, that really helped connected packaging or connected products or connected experiences. And then of course you've got all of these legislations. But why as a brand would you be interested in doing it? Well, it is really all about that learning. It's about the data. It's about collecting first party data. It's learning who your consumer is, why they consume your product, when they consume your product, the time of day, what day of the week, if there's any difference in that. Is there, if it's an alcohol, for example, do people drink that a lot at 7 o'clock at night when they get home after work? And the weekends, obviously, you see different behaviors. So it's really being able to come closer to the consumer. It's a two-way. If you go back to how I would have explained it in a party, I talked about a communication channel, and it really is a two-way. So it's what the brand can talk to the consumer about. So they can talk to them about the heritage, for example, of the brand, or the story of the farmer who, whatever, or you could be actually telling them around sustainability. Perhaps there's some change in the packaging that you want to get over to the consumer. Firstly, so they understand it, but secondly, so they can believe in it and see the value. Or it might be something as simple as a vouchers or loyalty program or discount codes, or it could be instant win. So it could be something there where you want to bring value to the consumer because you want to obviously get that quick engagement. And then for the brand, it's that first party data. We normally see a 20% increase in sales. So that's also something, obviously, that most brands will be quite happy about.
Yeah.
And it's that engagement time with your consumer. If you can have that time with the consumer, then of course you increase your cool to mind. Type of the phrase there. I've just completely forgotten it, but I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And of course, you can also help increase the loyalty, especially if you're doing a loyalty program from the QR codes. Apart from that, you also have the way to be able to authenticate your products. So consumers can scan the QR code and find out whether it's a real authentic product, which of course is important both for the brand and for the consumer. So there's lots and lots of different reasons why that might be something that the brand wants to, talk to their consumer. And of course, it could be as simple as information like how to use the product, or I always think about IKEA. those horrible diagrams of how to put furniture together. If you show me a video, I actually might be able to do it.
Yeah.
But I certainly can't get it just from the plans.
That's true. I think my expectation now for an excellent product is there's going to be an unboxing experience which will be keyed off a QR code, and there'll be a video there. That, and unless, as in the case of, I just got this e-bike. I love e-bikes, and I got my second one ever the other day, and I scanned the QR code, and I was watching the video. And I'm like, this is the best product ever. The packaging was beautiful and the video looked nice. And they said, one of the opening phrases was, and welcome to your product. And all the setup's going to be simple. It's a sigh of relief. All you need is these 2 torque wrenches. And at that point, I'm like, what? And at first, I'm like, this is a joke, isn't it? I mean, I barely know what a torque wrench is. And I literally for 10 minutes, I'm like, that was a joke, wasn't it? And one of the things I'm working on since leaving Williot is this, or not one of the things, it's the thing, is an app which combines the ability to identify products with applying AI. And I love this little story because it shows, I basically then bought a torque wrench and still didn't know what to do with it. And I basically asked AI whether I'd got the right one. And because of, this kind of recognition of the product, it was able to say, yes, and don't worry, you just set it to this and then you can set up your bike. So I think there's going to be a set of use cases where that kind of digital physical connection is really going to come into its own in the future. One of the things about what you do, which I think is really makes you a fascinating person to speak to, is that you're in marketing, and marketing people have been beaten around the head since the beginning of dawn for metrics. It's the old adage of, I know that half of what I spend on advertising is a complete waste. The problem is I don't know which half it is. And I think, since then there's been this desire to measure the results. And I know, having read your book, that you do gather results from all of this. And so you're probably, the rest of us techies are like selling the AI, selling the whatever, next generation QR code. But I think you're interesting because you actually have to make it work, not in the coding sense, but in the business results sense. So having buttered you up a little bit, let me ask you, what have you seen in the numbers over the years? Has there been any change, or are there any trends that you see when you run campaigns that give us some hope or learnings about the evolution of what you've been doing over the last 10 years?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's the magic. I first was involved in digital advertising, and I always just thought, digital advertising obviously is better than everything else because you can understand, how it performs. What's the CTR? And that was kind of where we've kind of started from as the agency.
And most people want to know, this is like click-through ratio. Or,
click-through rate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, what percentage of people actually clicked on my ad? And that's then really where I got the idea for connected packaging, which is, well, actually, the packaging or the product itself is a media channel. Let's just turn it into a digital media channel, and we'll be able to track all of these different things. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And of course, in the live real-time dashboard, you can see how many people have clicked, when did they click, what time of day, as you were talking about earlier, but also for how long did they engage. And I think that's really, really important as well. We know that in this day and age of TikTok and all these other things, the attention span of the average consumer is super, super low because they're also bombarded with so many different things. You've got so many different things, and your brain's pinging, and something else is pinging at you, at this, at that, and all of these different things. So you actually to get the attention of your consumer is really difficult. And I think that the TikTok attention span is something like 2 seconds before somebody's false. It's really difficult. So one of the things that we've been able to see is the amount of time that people spend on connected engagements or connected packaging or connected products, whatever you're talking about. And we see on average 2 minutes. That's really good. And actually, some of our latest campaigns, so for example, the Sunny Oil campaign, that's a Middle East campaign, the cooking oil, we actually used AI, talking about AI. So we used AI, we used it as a way for you to create recipes with what you've already got in your fridge. So you would say, these are the things I've got. This is the thing I want to make, and then the AI would go away and give you a recipe in a couple of seconds. So you could actually create something. And actually, we found that people spent 7 minutes on that. And that's an average time of 7 minutes. That's huge. If you're really struggling to get 1 second, 2 seconds with your consumers, and with connected packaging, you can get 7 minutes. I mean, you imagine, again, you take it back to advertising. If you wanted to have not even a 7 minute, if you wanted to have a 1 minute TV ad, that's a very expensive thing, right? And then you actually don't know how many people watched it, and you don't know how many people actually had that on the TV, and nobody was watching it, and all those other things that comes obviously with TV advertising. Whereas with connected experiences, connected packaging, we can actually tell you how many people were actually engaged, and also how many times they come back to it. And the average, I can't remember now exactly, it was a percentage, it's 3 point something. This is the amount of times that people came back to that app as well. So then if you want to take 3 times 4, that's 3 times 7 is 21. It's 21 minutes of time. So then when you start talking about, am I getting front of mind, I think is the phrase I was trying to find earlier. Am I going to get front of mind? Well, obviously you're going to get more front of mind if you've just spent 21 minutes with your consumer, right? They're going to be at the shopping aisle, of course, subconsciously, if nothing else. They're going to be more drawn towards your product. So that's something that I think is really interesting. And I'm not sure if that massively answers your question. But the other thing I wanted to say as well, and that we've seen changing, is obviously the scan rate. And as more people become aware of QR codes, as more people find that this is actually, if the brand does it in the right way, that the QR code is something where they can get something extra, they can find some value, something interesting. So that will not be the brands that just land people to their website. Please listen to me, brands. If you're doing that, change it now. It's a bad experience. But for those brands who are doing it right, then actually consumers are starting to really understand that. So we're seeing the scan rate, so the percentage of people actually scanning QR codes going up. So yes, that gives us some hope in answer to your question. And also, as I say, we've got some really good engagement charms as well.
So it's key. It's not like falling off a log. You can't just slap a QR code on, point to your website, and expect people to spend time on. So what should be at the other end of that QR code? I guess that's sort of what you spend your life designing and advising on. But we know what not to do. Don't go to your website. What should people put at the other end of that QR code?
Think about what your consumers want, firstly. So who are they, and how can I bring them value? Because going to your website is definitely not going to be bringing them value. Why? Because nobody goes to brands' websites, right? It's just there.
They don't.
Of course they don't, and then brands say, "Oh, we do that already," and I'm like, you don't, because I've tried it out. You just go to your website, and how many people go to your website?
Well, I won't name names, but there's a brand that I spent quite a bit of time with, and it was fascinating. They had recipes as part of their content strategy, and the recipes on their ad, you could see that the kind of engagement rate was sort of single figures, double figures. I'm talking about, 5 to 10 to 20. But then you looked on social media where the same recipes, they were getting hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of views. So that underscores your point,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It's a lean in though as well. If you scan a QR code at that moment in time, you are interesting. You are interested in
Yes.
finding out more, and so you need to deliver something to reward the consumer for that action at that moment in time when they're interested in finding out something. So delivering them to your website, which probably has things about investor relations and corporate whatever, people don't care about that kind of stuff. So that is a crucial moment, but it's also a moment which is uninterrupted. There are no ads on this particular media channel, right? So this is uncluttered. Again, going back to what I said before, really hard to get attention and uninterrupted attention. QR code actually is that channel that allows you to be able to have that 2 minutes of pure interaction. So give them something great, give them something good. Think about, what does your audience want, and deliver that. And by doing that, then you can ask them for something back in return. Give us your name, your email address, tell me what flavor is your favorite flavor, or why you purchased this, or whatever it might be. Then you get a value exchange. And that's when it works really well.
So what would you point to as best practice in terms of extracting the data. So if someone scanned the QR code and maybe it's because they want to do an augmented reality game, maybe it's because they want a recipe, maybe there's some other reason. We'll talk about what those reasons are. But how do you recommend, because you're, I assume, pretty unbiased, what's your advice to people when they say, well, I get this as a two-way channel and I can listen? How do you help people listen?
So again, identify what it is that you can bring to your consumer, but also identify what it is that you want as well. And then get some advice, either from an agency like us, or maybe there's somebody in the business who has that information or experience to be able to create something that really does give that value exchange. And then when you have that, then of course you'll be able to extract lots of different data points. So, what's the most favorite flavor of women aged 20 to 40? What flavor do the kids like? What time of day do people drink this? And we did a really, really interesting campaign with a fruit juice across all of Europe. And what they wanted to know was when people consumed that fruit juice. And what we found was that actually the further eastern Europe you go, people are still actually consuming fruit juice in the morning for breakfast, which is kind of the traditional thought about. But actually, the more western you go, people have changed. And people are now kind of consuming that fruit juice at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It's more of a kind of pick me up type thing than it is actually that morning breakfast juice. So again, there's lots of different things that you can find out. Again, we also had a really interesting milk client. It was lactose free, and everything that they did was always around lactose free living, how to live your life as a lactose intolerant person, all of this type of stuff. And I said to them in the very first meeting, what percentage of people are lactose intolerant? And your consumers are like, oh, we don't know, but it's the majority. So I'm like, oh, okay. Why don't we ask that as one of the questions when people scan? They're like, oh, okay. So that was our first question. Are you lactose intolerant? Yes or no? Over 70% were not lactose intolerant. They actually chose this because it was a healthier option, or it was thought of as a healthier option. You can debate that in any way you like, but that massively changed their whole positioning. Okay, so it's not about lactose intolerant people at all. It's actually about
Yeah.
healthy lifestyles. So the next campaign we did, that of course was all about yoga, and you could win gym memberships and all of this type of stuff. Very, very different to talking to you about lactose intolerant recipes or lactose free recipes.
I think that's so cool. And you can see that as a marketing person, it's like, what do I talk about to engage people? And they were probably spending like most of their money on something that was largely irrelevant to most of their customers. And you got to the bottom of it. And it's covered in your book as well. I just to prove that I did go through it. And,
Yeah.
so where are people doing this scanning? That's what I want to know. Are they doing it in the aisle of the supermarket, or are they doing it when at 2 a.m. after they've on their third round of the tequila beverage that has the QR code or NFC tag on it? When's this happening, and where?
Is that what you're doing at 2 o'clock in the morning, Steve? Scanning QR code. Here you go. Here's tequila shots. No. So actually, the majority of scans are actually done once they leave the store. So it is post-purchase.
Oh.
Of course, there are some scans that are done in the aisle, but that's normally when people are looking for ingredients because of diet, lifestyle restrictions, those types of things. So actually, when you look at the majority, it's actually once you've left the store. And that's, I think, a really interesting point for, again, brands when they're starting to design what is my connected packaging or connected experience going to look like. So yeah, it's actually post-purchase.
And is it because people want a bit of fun, or is it because people are interested in utility? What are you seeing actually drives people to engage?
I think that just comes back to the product itself and the audience group that you have. When we talk about food and drink, we talk about loyalty, we talk about instant win, we talk about engagement. Those are the types of things. So that could be games. If you want engagement, then you want to do some sort of game, some filters, some fun. If we're going to like the furniture example that we were talking about, or machinery or something like that, or DIY, then a how to use is obviously going to be much more interesting because you need to get a job done. You don't want to start sitting playing a game and you have your e-bike to put together, right? So I think again you've got to think about who's my audience and what's my product. And again, that's when it's really good to get somebody who's really experienced in this to be able to help guide you. Because of course, if you get it wrong, you're going to say, "Oh no, it connected digital QR codes. That stuff doesn't work." No, you've got to get it right. There's a couple of things I would recommend for people to get it right. Of course, I've just talked about a few times now, making sure you know who your audience is, what is it that they want, bring them some value. Secondly, is also think about where you put the QR code. You put the QR code where no one can see it, then obviously there's going to be less people that are going to be able to scan it because people can't see it. Also think about the size. If you make it less than 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters, and I know you might have problems with space on your pack, but again, people are going to struggle to scan it or see it. So think about that. Also think about your call to action. If you don't put any call to action, less people are going to scan it than if you put a call to action that says scan to find out more, scan to find out how to use it, scan to win, all of those different things. And then lastly, if it is really about engagement, then use other media to help tell people about it as well. So social media, for example, when we combine connected experiences with social media, then we see a massive increase in people scanning because they know about it. And still, we're educating our consumers that there is a QR code and that they can scan it and they can find out something interesting or get the opportunity to win or participate in something. And so those are kind of my golden rules to getting success.
Very good. And what is your in the book you have some interesting examples of QR codes, but I assume that there's an ongoing battle on aesthetics with packaging. You know, people want their product to look good, and the perception is that the QR code is kind of going to do the opposite. Talk a bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two kind of schools of thought out there. One is let people know that it's a QR code, so people can recognize it immediately, keep it black and white, as is the traditional. The second say actually make it look fun, make it look interesting, blend it into the design. And I'm sure you've seen like designs with different QR codes. Galaxy has some nice ones. Pringles have it in the, I think it's in the moustache. So there's lots of different ways there. Again, I think it actually goes down to your audience. If it's going to be very informative, if your audience is about actually utility, get me how to use this, whatever, then probably actually a standard QR code is going to be the way forward. But if you're bringing fun, then I think you want to go down the designed route, and that will keep the brands and the packaging people happier as well. Generally, overall, there are a lot of studies out there. Generally, if you have a designed QR code, it will do better by 3 times and outperform your standard.
Very good. How are things going with this DPP, Digital Product Passport standard? One of my, as we were starting to talk about aesthetics, I thought about one of my favorite examples of QR codes on things, which is Ralph Lauren. And they now, all of their shirts have got a little QR code in the label. And to me, that speaks to integrity and quality and the fact, they're doing it because they want to fight anti-counterfeit and give people more information about their products. And I think they've really pioneered that. And, so hats off to them. But what are you seeing in terms of the adoption of serialized QR codes where every single product has a unique license plate, a unique number that identifies it? Is that still is it going to be people leaving it to the last minute, or are you actually seeing real brands doing it? And why wouldn't they do it? It seems so obvious. You'd want that kind of unique identity.
It does sound so obvious. However, it's a little bit more complex to manage than a standard one size fits all QR code across everything.
Yeah.
And so if we kind of look at what they've got to do, then they've actually got to manage their printer capability. Does our printer give us the ability to be able to do that? And that's actually sometimes a showstopper. So when we're going down this journey of bringing people into the new age or the QR age, we've got to look at a lot of different things. And really, realistically speaking, serialized is the more complex because, of course, you've got to be able to fix that problem. But once you do, then obviously you also get a better or deeper granularity of data in terms of, well, of course, you can know exactly down to one where it is, whether it turns up in your consumer's hands in France or Germany or whatever it might be. So The thing is, we've got to take people on that journey. I don't see huge amount of brands moving to that space yet, but I think we've got to get people into the funnel. So the first step is, of course, realizing that the QR codes can bring you something, and perhaps there's a little pilot that needs to go out there and prove that internally. And then we move to then SKU normally, so SKU level, SKU level, where we have flavors and sizes to be able to then show again a different level and granularity of data. And then we can move then into the serialized. And that's normally the journey, because to actually change the printers or the printing process for a company that might be a little bit more traditional, that might have factories all over the world, that might need to have a lot of different people to sign off and things like that. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges actually when we talk about connected experiences, connected packaging, is actually it crosses a lot of different teams, because you've got the packaging teams, you've got the artwork, that's how they're going to change the design and where they're going to make the space for the QR code. Then you're also talking about procurement, you're talking about the marketing people, you're talking about all of these different, I probably missed them out as well, but there's lots of these different teams or pockets of people that might also be spread in different offices, that don't sit together, that never have talked together. The marketing person has never spoken to this particular person on the printer, and why would they? And now this is something that is. So it's definitely moving towards it, but you need to get more people into the funnel, to get more people into the, if I use a funnel of the right analogy, but to get people into realizing and then seeing what they need to do and then implementing it. Of course, some brands are doing it, and there's always some that are pioneering and are faster to move than others. But as we get more and more people into QR codes and moving down that way, then we're going to see a lot more people within serialized them as well.
Yeah. So another great thing that you have going for you, I think, is that you come in to all these different companies, and you've got a ton of use case examples, case studies in the book. So I can see that you've been busy. You come into all these companies from the outside, and you just sort of, in that last segment, you took us from me saying, why is this so difficult? You got a website, you got a QR code. And now, at the end of that, I'm like, it's amazing. Anyone does anything, especially in these massive companies, the Procter & Gamble's, the Unilevers. What have you learned in terms of people being able to bridge those silos and getting the technology people to work with the creative people? And there must be so many different departments. And it's like the big companies that can afford to do it properly. But for them, it's also the hardest because they're more siloed and this is new. And so they're probably not set up to do it. How have you seen the best of the best solve the silo problem?
It's really interesting, because in the last, I would say, 2 years, there are now roles or teams that are actually dedicated to looking after connected packaging. I think that's a huge change. That's happening in the larger companies. Of course, they can afford to have people who are really focused on that, but that's new, where connected packaging is part of somebody's job title. Definitely wasn't something 10 years ago when I was selling connected packaging, that is for sure. So that's a really big change. And so those big companies are actually really dedicating time and resource to being able to move forward with this. And I think that's a really big statement actually for the future of connected packaging. And then of course you've got retailers, Tesco's, for example, trialing things as well. So again, this isn't really talking about, will connected packaging ever take off? Will connected products ever be kind of in the mainstream? Yes, I think there's so many signals that obviously it will. There's, again, all the things I talked about at the beginning as well. But it is a slow process for people to pick it up. And it does take time to also get all of your ducks in a row and all of the right things lined up. But yeah, I see that companies are really dedicated to doing it. Yes, we've done a lot of examples, a lot of use cases, a lot of brands. As I said, we've also been doing this a really long time, but we're seeing more and more companies really kind of waking up to the advantages. And so actually, it's quite interesting getting people in the companies to speak to each other. They quite never have spoken to each other before, but everyone's got the common goal, which is obviously to further the brand. And there's lots of different reasons and motivations why the people want to do it. Definitely finding someone who's a bit of an innovator or a bit of a person who likes to take things on is definitely easier than perhaps people who are much more traditional. But I definitely see a lot more of it, and those job titles really is a big change.
And I guess the kind of the classic part of the classic response to that question is get someone really senior to sponsor it. What's the job title of the best kind of the people that are most effective at driving that across the functions?
Great question, and it does kind of depend on the brand or the company, because it's what is going to matter most to them. So is that authentication? Do they have a big authentication problem? Is there a lot of
Mm.
fakes or something that's harming the business? Or is it going to be the marketing department who are mostly interested in driving sales and getting great campaigns out there? So it's finding that particular point for the particular brand and company that you're working with.
Okay. So I realize we've been talking for a while, so I just have two topics that I quickly want to go through. And the first one is, what is it about beverages and connected packaging? I'm like, it seems to be like a huge proportion, or maybe it's just your appetite. Your firm has just found a niche with beverages, but is there a special affinity between? I was going to say booze, but you talked about the milk as another example. It's way beyond alcohol. Any reason why there's that affinity?
It might be that it's a little bit skewed because that's where we have a lot of success, and therefore a lot of those brands then come to us because they see a lot of case studies.
Yeah.
I also think that the type of product that it's a quickly consumed product, which means that there isn't a lot of stock that's sitting around for a long time. So if you speak to a brand and they want to do something, it's easier for them to do it and get the packaging change. Whereas if you speak to something where maybe there's a shelf life because it's a different type of product for maybe a year or something, there might already be a lot of stock already around. So having to change anything actually then means you've got to wait a year or two, and people fall out of love of doing the idea, of the motivation fades. So I think it's the combination of those things. But I think maybe we're just a bit skewed as well because that's why we've had a lot of success, and so those brands now come to us.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. Well, I lied because there's actually another two topics I want to cover. But the next one is technology. And, we spend a lot of time on this podcast because I love the technology. But I think I want your perspective on kind of what's good and bad and how much is hype, and what's your prognosis on the QR code versus the NFC versus the RFID versus the BLE. And I'm asking you about this not to try and get you to talk techie. It's actually the opposite. It's like, as someone who just wants results, you want to run a campaign and you want to have some numbers that get you the next gig. So I think you're probably the most objective about the state of those at the moment and, what you're thinking about in the future. And let me just throw one more technology in. We'll probably forget all of these, but the electronic shelf label, does that have a role to play? It's not packaging, but it's some connectivity technology that's going into the shopping environment. What's your view on the efficacy of all of these alternatives to QR codes? Because QR codes is basically all you and I have been talking about. But yeah,
That's true. And actually, we focus on the experience. So even though a lot of what we've been talking about is the QR code, actually the experiences and the value can be the same, whether that be RFID, NFC, or your QR code. It doesn't really matter to us actually as Appetite Creative what that gateway is. So it's very objective in that sense. The difference is if you're talking about food and drink or the majority of FMCG, then actually the margins are pretty small. So then if we want to put in the cost of an RFID or NFC, and yes, the cost has come down in years, yes, we know that. But once you put a cost in there as well, on top of what could be, or instead of what could be the QR code, which of course is pretty much free, then actually that's when you have a problem. And what I spend most of my time doing is coming back to the ROI, because if you spend something, you want to get some ROI out of that, right? And then it's harder. So I think really when you start talking about which one of these technologies is the right technology, then again, you have to go back to, well, what's my product and what's my margin? When you talk about luxury product, then actually NFC RFID has a much bigger margin, and they have the opportunity to actually incur a bigger cost there, and it might make more sense to have something else like that. But if we're talking about an engagement, a game, then actually I see no need to be spending any more money on that. You want to talk about something where you talk about authentication, we're talking about a Chanel, a luxury product, then actually RFID, NFC, something which is a little bit more or automatically serialized, then actually that might play into something. Again, where you might want to understand the temperature of something, for example. For QR codes, obviously you're not going to be able to do that for you.
Very good. Well, last topic is your survey. You've like your book. I think credit to you on the connected packaging book, because it's the second edition, and that means it must have been worthwhile enough for you to put the time and effort to bring it up to date. And I see that you did. And this survey, I don't know how long you've been doing it for, but I think it's great that you are doing it. What are you seeing, either retrospectively or any kind of early results that you are seeing from submissions? What do you learn from the survey that has surprised you?
No sneak preview on results, because actually I don't know, so I haven't even got anything to share and leak to you there. It's our fourth or fifth connected packaging survey, so actually it's really nice to be able to see, again, going back to what you said, where's the hope coming from? We're actually the amount of brand, the percentage of brand who are interested in doing connected packaging last year was 88%. So we're getting pretty much at the top. I'm not too sure whether or not we can better that this year. We'll see. But it's, again, really, really interesting to find out what brands are saying. Of course, consumers, there's a lot of consumer surveys out there, but actually speaking to the brands, do you find it interesting? Is it something that you want to invest in? If so, how much and why? I think that's really, really interesting, and nobody was doing it. So obviously we went out to do that, and obviously we spread that information, and it's a free report for people to download. But yeah, it's no sneak information there, Steve.
Well, people will just have to come back, and I think you're going to you do a webinar, right? On
Yeah, we
on
do
the
a
results.
webinar. It's on the 27th of February, so it's again free for anybody to tune in and see the results live. We've also got some people from SIG, from our reveal, talking about the results as well. What do they think? What do we think? We'll see, because I don't know what the results are going to say, but we can certainly find out on the 27th of February.
So, Jenny, you're in what to me looks like a Mediterranean environment. Where did you grow up?
Well, I actually grew up in Hertfordshire in the UK, so near London.
Oh, yeah.
But I moved here to Madrid, so you're right, Mediterranean. I moved here, I think, 12, 13 years ago.
So I went to Hatfield Poly in Hertfordshire. Was that anywhere close to where you were, or not?
Well, I was born in Hemel Hempstead, so that's kind of close to Hatfield.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny. My company's in an incubator at the moment, which sounds odd, but this place for startups. And I'm on campus at the University of California, San Diego, and it is like heaven. The amazing buildings, and these kids just don't know what they've got, because Hatfield Poly, it was a wonderful education and the best time of my life, but it was a dump. It really was not great. Hemel Hempstead, though, nice. That was very nice.
Hemel Hempstead is okay. I would say, Tring, Berkhamsted, maybe a little bit posher.
Yeah. So how do you run your agency? Are all the people with you in Madrid, or are they over in Hemel Hempstead, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so it's all kind of changed since COVID. So previously we were set up in the UK and we had an office in Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
There were two really kind of central locations where people came to the office every single day, Monday to Friday, normal as things were. And then when COVID came, I'm sorry, we also had a office in Dubai as well. And then when COVID came, the Dubai office, everybody wanted to go home. Nobody was obviously from Dubai. So that was the first piece. So we kind of terminated the contract there. And then once COVID had passed, people didn't really want to come back to the office every day anymore. And as much as I tried to force it, maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whichever way I worked it, I just wasn't able to make the majority happy. So in the end, actually, we had a vote and we all work remotely. We do have spaces, so we do come together. So there is a time for people to be together physically. But for the most part, everybody works remotely. We do a check-in stand-up call every morning. Everybody logs in. We use an office space, a digital office space where you have your own desk and you can digitally walk to people and have a chat as if you were at their desk, which is quite useful actually. Once we started using that, we were able to keep a lot more of that kind of personable conversations, just popping over, and a lot of clarifications that get lost on email. And we work most of the time digitally, remotely.
Huh. And what is that tool? It sounds interesting.
Well, it's called Kumu Space, and you can have it has like a boardroom area. It has like a games area. There's donuts and a water cooler, so you can go hang out at the water cooler if you feel like you just want to have a chat with someone. There's donuts which they go down. They take bites out of it during your meeting. You can share your screen. You can make notes on the whiteboard. I think it's integrated with Miro, so it's a very good replacement, if you can say replacement, for physical. I think it's the best. We've tried a lot. We've tried a lot of them, but this one works really well for us.
And your business, you spend a lot of time with CPGs. What were you doing in Dubai?
So yeah, Dubai the same as Madrid and the same as London. So very much talking to brands and helping them with their marketing desires.
Very good. Well, one last question. How long? So I take it your Spanish is pretty good now. How long did it take you to get proficient? Because, I'm of an age where my friends, family are kind of retiring. And, one of the fantasies is total immersion to kind of get their Spanish from, textbook schoolgirl Spanish to good. So how long did it take you? Presumably you went through some kind of escalating proficiency.
So I started by having somebody come to the office twice a week and having lessons in the office while I was living in Spain. So I didn't really speak much Spanish when I came out here. A couple of words, a couple of counting to 10, those types of things. Nothing useful. And then after that, I actually did a 3-week intensive. So I actually took 2 weeks off and a week's holiday to do a 3-week intensive course. That was pretty useful. But then the real thing that really helped me to become fluent would be I got myself a boyfriend who didn't speak English. And
that would do it.
It's a motivator. It's a motivator, right? Ended up marrying him. He still doesn't speak English. So yeah, the language of the household is mostly Spanish, unless me and my daughter want to talk about him, and then we can do that in English.
Oh, that's really handy. And what about your daughter? What does she speak generally? Is she to you? Except when she's trying English. To, be in secret.
No, generally, if she's just having a conversation with me, then she speaks me in English. But obviously, if we're at the dinner table or whatever, then we speak in Spanish.
Yeah. Unless your husband's been very bad, in which case the whole meal's done in English.
I mean, it's done in English, and you can sit in silence.
Very good. So I asked you a question which I'm intrigued because I don't think you did your homework. So I stole this idea, borrowed it. It's a tribute. It's a homage to Desert Island Discs, which you may or may not be familiar with, but longest running radio show in the world. And they get, 8 discs. So, and it used to be on the show, I would say 3 songs. And not everyone, I would say 1 in 4 people said Space Oddity or Rocket Man. And I'm like, this is not getting me what I want. What I want is something that's significant to you, that has some meaning to you, that kind of relates back to your life. It doesn't need to be a favorite song. It could be you in a horrible traffic accident and there was this song playing in the ambulance back to the hospital. Are there 3 songs that have meaning to you?
Oh, yes, yes. I didn't do my homework, so it's got to be off the top of my head. But then maybe it's more truthful.
Yeah.
So number one is Pump Up the Jam, Technotronic. I don't know if you know that song, but
I was playing it this week. This week I was playing that song. I promise
no
you.
way, no way.
Yeah.
Well, that's my what's the word? You know, get up and be in a happy mood, even if things are rubbish. It used to be a favourite of my mum. It's still probably a favourite of her song. So we used to play it a lot. We used to sing it a lot. So Pump Up the Jam. So you're feeling like
Great.
you're having a bad day, you can't really
Yeah.
not get into it. So
Or going to a difficult meeting or an important meeting. You want to kind of G yourself
you want to
up.
pump yourself up.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
If you're feeling sad, or you want to motivate yourself, or if you want to get into fight mode, or whatever it might be. So
Very good.
definitely that would be number one. And now I have to think on my feet. Number two would be my go-to karaoke song, which would be Rolling in the Deep, Adele.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's any kind of karaoke situation, that's probably my go-to.
And my assumption from you saying that is that you can sing reasonably well. Is that true?
Yeah, I can sing. I'm all right singer. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
Don't ask me to do that now as well.
And here, let me help you on the third one. Is there something that relates to your husband? Because no doubt he will dutifully listen to this podcast. I say that sarcastically. I'm sure he won't. But that's a place that you could go. You don't have to, but you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We could do that. So I sung for him at my wedding, or our wedding, I should say.
Yeah.
1,000 Years. So that's from the vampire film. I've forgotten the name of it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So there you go.
Good.
There's your three.
Wonderful. Jenny, it's been a real pleasure chatting to you. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
So that was Jenny Stanley. I really enjoyed my conversation with her, and I hope you found it useful. Thank you to all of you for listening, to staying to the end of the show. Thank you to our podcast sponsors, Bleakon and Identiv. Without them, we couldn't really invest in the professional editing that we enjoy from Mr. Aaron Hammock, our trusty producer, editor, publisher of the show. So I traditionally talk about what I've been listening to the last couple of weeks at this point in the show, and I want to plug another podcast. It's called Raconteurs. So like Raconteur, but focused on rock music. And it is moderated by two amazing guys, Gary Kemp and Guy Pratt. So Gary was the writer of the hit songs for Spandau Ballet, 80s new romantic band who actually saw live after their single True really hit the charts. And Guy Pratt's a session musician, and he does a lot of work with Pink Floyd, and he's played with Madonna. And anyway, they know the inside of the industry. And this is like 4th, 5th, 6th season. It's been going for a while. It started just before COVID. And they're great talkers, and they have amazing guests. And this week they had Jill Furmanovsky, who is this photographer. And her first photographs were of the Beatles, and her most recent was Oasis during their comeback tour. And I just loved their conversation. She is fascinating. So if you enjoy rock music, pop culture, then check out Raconteurs. So that's it from me. Be safe, smell the roses, enjoy the journey, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching this episode of the Mr. Beacon Ambient IoT podcast. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and share this video, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss further episodes. For more information about our sponsors, head over to blecon.net, identiv.com, and ambientChat.ai.